The air on the Via Appia thickens not just with dust, but with something alien, cloying, jasmine and myrrh. It's 46 BC. You are standing in a Roman crowd that has just fallen unnervingly silent. A gilded litter, carried by Nubian guards, sways towards the city. Inside, veiled, is the Queen of Egypt. The Serpent of the Nile has come to the heart of the Republic. This silence isn't awe, it's the sound of a city inhaling, sensing its own end. Why did this one foreign queen, arriving in such chilling silence, mark the absolute death rattle of a republic that had stood for nearly 500 years? What unspeakable truth did she carry? A secret pact more dangerous to Rome than any army, any civil war. And here's the unsettling part. How many times in your own life have you seen the grand spectacle, the public drama, and completely missed the quiet conversation, the veiled arrival that was changing your world forever? To understand the dread that coiled in the Roman stomach that day, you need to picture the city as it truly was. This is not the clean marble ruin you've seen in photographs. This is Rome in 44 BC, a sprawling, chaotic metropolis of 1 million people that smells of baking bread, open sewers, and hot iron from the blacksmith's forges. It is a city that has just bled for years. The Civil War is over, and Gaius Julius Caesar is the undisputed victor. He has crushed his rival, Pompey the Great. He has chased the last of the Senate's armies across Africa and Spain. Now he has returned not as a general, but as a master. The Senate, a body of old men from ancient families who once ruled the known world, now rubber stamps his every decree. They have named him Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. The word king, rex, is still the most obscene curse in the Roman vocabulary, a title so hated that their ancestors had sworn a sacred oath to kill any man who ever tried to claim it again. And into this city, this powder keg of pride, fear, and tradition, Caesar brings Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt. He had met her 2 years earlier, a brilliant, ambitious 21-year-old monarch reportedly smuggled to him in a carpet. She became his lover, and he, in turn, secured her throne. More than that, she gave him something his Roman wife never could. A son. The boy's name is Ptolemy Caesar, but the world will know him as Caesarion, Little Caesar. He is the living embodiment of a union that terrifies the Roman elite to its very core. Because Cleopatra is not just a foreign ruler, she is everything Rome defines itself against. She is Eastern, she is decadent, and worst of all, she is a monarch who is worshipped as a living god. She does not ask for power, she believes she is power. And now, she and her son, Caesar's only biological child, are living in Caesar's private villa, just across the Tiber River, close enough for the entire city to feel her shadow falling over them. This is the stage. A victorious dictator flirting with absolute power, a foreign queen with a divine lineage, and a city that built its identity on the bones of a king it overthrew centuries ago. You are standing in the final moments of the Roman Republic. You just don't know it yet. The dread begins not with a bang, but with a series of quiet, deliberate actions, each one a stone dropped into a still pond, the ripples spreading wider and wider. Caesar installs Cleopatra and their son not in some discreet, hidden location, but in his magnificent private villa on the Janiculum Hill, a luxurious estate with sprawling gardens that overlooks the entire city. From her terrace, she can see the heart of the Republic, and the Republic can see her. Her presence is not a secret, it is a statement. If you were a Roman citizen walking by the river, you would see her exotic entourage, eunuchs, servants, advisors from a world you considered decadent and morally corrupt. The rumors begin to spread, whispered in the baths and market stalls, of the lavish parties, the strange music, the foreign tongue spoken in the home of Rome's most powerful man. But the true affront was yet to come. Then Caesar does something that is not just scandalous but sacrilegious. He commissions a solid gold statue of Cleopatra, not as a queen, but as the goddess Isis, and he places it inside the newly constructed temple of Venus Genetrix. Venus, the mythical mother of the Roman people and Caesar's own claimed ancestor. By placing Cleopatra's image beside the goddess, he is elevating his foreign mistress to the level of Roman divinity. He is weaving her into the very fabric of the city's soul. Imagine you are a senator, a man like Cicero, whose family has served the Republic for generations. You walk into this sacred space, the air cool and smelling of incense, and you see the golden face of an Egyptian queen staring back at you, her features immortalized next to the mother of your people. In that moment, you would know this is no longer about politics. It is about the erasure of everything you stand for. Cicero himself writes letters to his friends, his disgust barely veiled. He states that he detests the queen, his script sharp with fury. He complains about her arrogance, about the promises she made to him that he knew she would never keep. He is not alone. Every night, in the darkened homes of Rome's elite, other powerful men are meeting. Men like Gaius Cassius Longinus, a bitter, brilliant general who had once fought for Pompey and was pardoned by Caesar. He begins to speak to his brother-in-law, Marcus Junius Brutus. Brutus is a man Caesar loves, a man he has promoted and protected, the son of his favorite mistress. But Brutus is also a man who traces his lineage back to the very hero who expelled Rome's last king. Cassius knows which loyalty to appeal to. The meetings are short, the doors are locked. They speak in low voices about Caesar's actions. He has taken control of the treasury. He is planning a new, massive war against the Parthian Empire, an expedition that would take him out of Rome for years, leaving his allies in charge. He is settling his tens of thousands of loyal army veterans on public land, creating a client base that answers only to him. He has reformed the calendar, renaming a month after himself, July. Each action on its own could be seen as a necessary reform by a benevolent dictator. But when you put them all together, a terrifying picture emerges. It is the construction of a monarchy, piece by piece. And Cleopatra is the ghost in the machine, the foreign influence some historians believe is guiding his hand. They watch her, they watch him, and they see a future taking shape that has no place for a senate, no place for a republic. They see a Hellenistic kingdom rising from the ashes of their traditions, ruled by a man who thinks he's a god, and a woman who already knows she is one. The true source of their terror, however, is the boy, Caesarion. He is the missing piece. A dictator's power dies with him. A king's power is passed to his son. The boy's existence transforms Caesar's ambition from a personal failing into a dynastic threat. The serpent has not just entered the garden, she has laid an egg. And the men meeting in the shadows know that if they let it hatch, the Rome they knew will be gone forever. The worst part hadn't happened yet. The betrayal that breaks the world begins with a whisper. It centers on one man, Marcus Junius Brutus. Caesar loves him genuinely. He calls him my boy. He promotes him to high office. He forgives him for fighting on the wrong side of the civil war. After the Battle of Pharsalus, where Brutus sided with Pompey, Caesar had given specific orders to his officers: find Brutus, and if he doesn't surrender willingly, let him go. Do not harm him. This is more than political clemency. It is the affection of a father for a son. Think about the person in your life you trust the most, the one you believe would stand by you no matter what. Now imagine them sharpening a knife with your name on it. For Brutus, the conflict is a storm in his soul. His mother, Servilia, has been Caesar's cherished mistress for decades. To betray Caesar is to betray his mother's world, to betray the man who has been his patron and protector. But his name, Brutus, is a constant reminder of his other legacy. His ancestor, Lucius Junius Brutus, drove the tyrant Tarquin the Proud from Rome and founded the Republic. The pressure mounts. Anonymous messages begin appearing on the praetor's chair where he sits to administer justice. One morning, he reportedly finds a note scrawled on the base of his ancestor's statue: "If only you were alive." Another day, a message is left for him directly: "You are not Brutus." It is a psychological war waged by his peers. They are telling him he is a coward, a disgrace to his name if he allows another king to rise. The final moment, the breaking point, is not a dramatic confrontation. It is a quiet conversation with Cassius, a man whose lean and hungry look Caesar himself had distrusted. Cassius lays out the stakes, not as a power grab, but as a sacred duty. He doesn't ask Brutus to murder a man, he asks him to save a principle. He asks him to become a surgeon who must cut away a cancer to save the body of Rome. And in the quiet of a Roman study, with the sounds of the city muffled outside, Brutus gives his assent. In that moment, 30 years of friendship, of loyalty, of a bond as close as father and son, dissolves into nothing. He chooses the ghost of an ancestor over the living man who loved him. The decision is made. The full scope of their plan, however, was far more chilling than a simple assassination. What you've been told is a story of chaotic, passionate murder is wrong. The assassination of Julius Caesar was not a frenzied attack by a mob of angry senators. This was a clinical, cold, and meticulously coordinated execution, planned with the precision of a military campaign. The number of conspirators was not a handful. It was more than 60. 60 of the most powerful and respected men in Rome, moving in concert, bound by an oath. This wasn't a conspiracy, it was a shadow government. They debated every detail. The weapon was chosen for its concealability, a short dagger, a pugio, easily hidden in the folds of a toga. The location was debated at length. Some suggested killing him on the street during a parade, others in his own home. They settled on the Curia of Pompey, a meeting hall adjacent to Pompey's theater where the Senate was temporarily convening. The choice was strategic. You need to understand why this detail is so chilling. The enclosed space would limit Caesar's ability to escape, and the colonnades outside provided the perfect choke points for their own armed gladiators to block Caesar's supporters from intervening. Every man had a role. One senator, Tillius Cimber, was assigned the task of approaching Caesar with a petition, grabbing his toga to pull it down from his neck, which would be the signal to attack. Another group was tasked with engaging Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal co-consul, in a long conversation outside the hall to keep him from entering. And here is the detail that reveals the true depth of the betrayal. On the morning of the attack, the Ides of March, Caesar was unwell. His wife, Calpurnia, had been plagued by nightmares and begged him not to go to the Senate. He was about to dismiss the senators when one of his most trusted friends, Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus, another Brutus, a man who was even named in Caesar's will as a secondary heir, arrived at his house. Decimus reportedly laughed off the bad omens, took Caesar by the arm, and personally escorted him to his death. And here's what should make you deeply uncomfortable. This level of organized betrayal wasn't an anomaly. It was the system turning on itself. Every single person Caesar trusted that day, from the friend who distracted him to the friend who walked him to the door, was part of the plan. This wasn't murder. It was an institutional self-destruct sequence. There is one more person in this story. You haven't heard their name yet, but you should have. Their silence is the loudest sound in the entire affair, and it will reveal the true target of the assassination. The person you haven't heard from is Cleopatra. On the day Caesar was stabbed 23 times at the base of his dead rival's statue, she was still in her villa across the river. The conspirators, in their meticulous planning, had made a fatal error. They believed that by killing the man, they would kill the idea of monarchy. They called themselves the liberators. But what you now understand, and what most people never will, is that this assassination was never truly about Caesar. It was about his son. It was about her. The systemic truth, the deep philosophical dread of this moment in history, is that the murder was an act of purification. The conspirators feared Caesar was about to make a monumental move. According to historical records, they had received intelligence that at that very Senate meeting on the Ides of March, a proposal was to be put forward to grant Caesar the right to be called Rex outside of Italy. This would allow him to rule the eastern provinces as a king, just like the Hellenistic monarchs he had conquered. And as a king, he could marry a queen. He could marry Cleopatra. He could legitimize their son Caesarion and declare him his heir. The official story is that they killed him to save the Republic. But the truth is far darker. They killed him to prevent the contamination of Rome. The secret pact between Caesar and Cleopatra wasn't for a crown in Rome. It was for a new, hybrid empire, a fusion of Roman military power and Egyptian wealth and divine tradition. An empire that might one day be ruled from Alexandria, not Rome. The 23 stab wounds were not for the laws Caesar had broken. They were for the future he was about to create. They were a violent, bloody rejection of a multicultural, globalized world in favor of a pure, traditional Roman one. This is the pattern that never goes away. It is the terror of the old bloodline in the face of the new. The liberators weren't just killing a tyrant. They were performing an exorcism, trying to cast out a foreign demon they believed was possessing the soul of their city. They saw the serpent coiling around the eagle, and they chose to kill the eagle to be rid of the serpent. And in doing so, they unleashed a new round of civil wars that would last for 13 years, a conflict so brutal and devastating that when it was finally over, the exhausted, broken Roman world begged for a king to give them peace. The conspirators' act of liberation was the very thing that made the rise of an emperor inevitable. They didn't save the Republic. They signed its death warrant in Caesar's blood. The answer to the question you've been sitting with this entire video is this. Cleopatra was the true threat not because of her armies, her wealth, or even her intelligence. She was the threat because of her biology. She was the vessel for a future that Rome could not and would not accept. The secret pact that crushed the Republic was not a piece of paper. It was written in blood, in the DNA of her son, Caesarion. He was the living proof that Caesar's ambition did not end with himself. A Roman dictator was a temporary problem. A half-Egyptian heir to a divine dynasty was a permanent one. Her presence in Rome, a constant, visible reminder of this alternate future, was the catalyst. It forced the conspirators to act. They could have waited. They could have hoped Caesar would die on his Parthian campaign. But with her and the boy living on the edge of the city, the threat was immediate. They had to cut out the heart of the problem before it could produce an heir they couldn't eliminate. The final chilling proof of this came 13 years later. After all the other conspirators were dead, after Mark Antony, Cleopatra's new Roman partner, was also defeated, Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, captured Alexandria. He had Cleopatra's other children with Antony spared. But Caesarion, now a 17-year-old boy, he had hunted down and killed without hesitation. The historian Plutarch records Octavian's justification, a line that is as cold and pragmatic as anything ever uttered. He believed it was not good to have too many Caesars. He didn't say too many kings or too many rulers. He said too many Caesars. He was erasing the rival bloodline. He was finishing the job the liberators had started on the Ides of March. He was killing the Serpent's child. The procession is over. The gilded litter is empty. The woman who arrived to the silent awe of the Roman crowd had to flee the city in the chaos that followed her lover's murder, her son in her arms. That silent crowd found its voice soon enough when they learned from Caesar's will that he had left each of them a small fortune. They rioted and they burned the homes of the men who had claimed to be their liberators. The fear of the foreigner, the fear of a changing world, is not an ancient story. You see it every day, in the headlines, in the political speeches, in the arguments about who belongs and who doesn't. You see the same terror of a future that looks different from the past. The assassins believed they were heroes, acting to preserve the purity of their world. But their righteous violence only accelerated the very future they feared. They killed one man to stop a king, and in his place an emperor rose who would have absolute power they could never have imagined. The next time you hear someone promise that a single violent act can restore a lost glory, remember Brutus. Remember that he had known Caesar for 30 years, and he still picked up the knife. Tell me in the comments, which part of this stayed with you?